Welcome to Family Peace Initiative's Curriculum Blips. In this podcast, we provide fast and easy resources for facilitators using the FPI suite of curricula to help you prepare before stepping into a group room. Whether you're brand new to BIP facilitation or using drive time to refresh yourself on familiar concepts, these blips are intended to help you get in the right frame of mind as you head into group. You'll hear from seasoned staff and FPI curricula authors on the key concepts and goals of each lesson, as well as what to expect from group members in these conversations. Today, we're starting Section 2, The Painful Shift, Values, Integrity, and Accountability. Steve Halley, co-founder and co-director of the Family Peace Initiative, walks us through what to expect in the first week of this section when talking with group members about integrity and values. Let's get right to it.
Well, if you've made it to this little curriculum blip, then hopefully you've successfully made it through the whole first section of the curriculum, which is just designed to help people look at their own cruelty. The second section is looking at how do we begin to turn our lives to be more the way we'd like them to be? How do we start making what we call the painful shift? And we start section 2 by talking about integrity and values, because many times those who are battering, their values are out of line with their behavior, and they may not have their finger on the pulse of their values specifically, or which ones are most important to them. And so we want to start by helping them take a look at what are your values, and where did those values come from, and how are you doing at living according to your values now. And so in the first section of Section 2, in Week 1, we're talking about the definition of integrity. Our actions, our words, and our values are in alignment. And we're trying to help people identify what their own personal values are. And the way we decided to do this was to provide them with 3 pages in the workbook of just columns of value words. And we asked them to slowly whittle down from maybe identifying 15 in the whole collection that they would say, yes, that's a value that's important to me. And then after they get maybe 15, to take those and very slowly whittle that list down to the top 3. And those top 3 are what Janet Good calls the hill that we die on, right? The things that are so important to us, whatever those values are. Those are really running through the veins of our lives and driving so much of what we're doing. And what's really fun is the conversation that comes afterwards. So the way it would work is that we give the homework assignment to the guys a week before we get to the value section. And the homework assignment is just to whittle this list of values down to the top 3. Maybe we'll check in with everybody sharing one of their top values, or maybe sharing all 3 of their values that they came up with. But then we have an activity where we ask people to kind of tell the story of 1 or 2 or all 3 of their values, right? Where did these values come from? How were they rooted in our lives? People would talk about the value of honesty, being driven from the fact that their mother or father or stepfather was very dishonest with them, and they vowed that they would never live like that, and they didn't want to be like their stepfather, and so they were always going to look for honesty in their lives, or being a hard worker, or not being lazy, taking initiative, or being compassionate or caring. These values have roots in our experiences. They don't come out of just thin air. And we want the participants to kind of know the story behind the important values that maybe they're just now recognizing, oh yeah, this is something that's really important to me. And I can see how it's rooted in either loving experiences that I had or cruel experiences that I had to survive. And then we're weaving in integrity on top of that to where we're asking people to kind of project the future, where maybe they imagine their ideal self, right? So if you were living your life out of these values, if you were in integrity with your behaviors and your words and your values, how would your life be different? What would you be doing different than you are today? We like to also ask them to connect, were they living out their values when they were being cruel and abusive and violent to their partners? Which values were missing, and how would that event have gone differently if they were living out their values that they just identified through the homework? We're starting the painful shift conversation, and the part of the painful shift is just recognizing what are the values that are important to me, And what's stopping me from living out those values? And where did they come from? What was the story? How were they born into my life? And what would it look like if I was going to live these values out day to day from this point forward? So we lay out the values and integrity, and then we will move forward to the next week of asking them to learn more about the painful shift, what it's like, and how we can practice implementing our values, working on the painful shift, and helping us to create a different existence for ourselves. Kind of the fun thing that comes up for people when they're looking at this is many times people haven't connected the experiences when they were young to how that morphed into a really important lifelong value that they have. So I see people get very reflective. I get people getting very protective of the values, and of course that they have values, and of course they kind of think that everybody has these values, but it becomes really clear that every person has a different set of values. And one of the things that we try to commonly point out is that many conflicts in relationships are about competing values. If one partner has a work ethic value and the other has a family connection value, many times that work ethic and family connection can create conflict with each other. And we want to be able to show how understanding our own values, understanding our partner's values, can really help us to understanding conflicts that arise in relationships. So in the end, I think that this is a successful group if we have group members kind of mucking around in their own stories and starting to remember things and reminisce and making sense out of who they are today and how they became that way. But also, once again, it's an opportunity for the groups to be validating each other, to be able to hearing each other's stories, recognizing that we're not alone, and recognizing that we can share vulnerable things in this space and be safe. As long as those things are happening and we're getting people being in an internal focused conversation, very introspective in their own rules and codes for their own life, then this group is really helpful in creating those opportunities.
Thanks for preparing for your group with us today. If you have questions, stucks, or if there's a section of the curriculum you'd like to hear us explore in more detail, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at reception@familypeaceinitiative.com or submit a contact form on our website,